Hey, it's Chase from On the Table Gaming, and I'm joined, of course, by Simon. And Simon, we've got something pretty exciting to talk about today.
I think we have. Using my persona as Ram Man, I'm quite looking forward to seeing what we've got here. So, I think we have Chase.
All right. This is the Clash for Eternia prototype, and CMON has been incredibly generous to send this out our way to take a look at. And oh my gosh, we'll walk through and take a look at what this prototype entails for those people who are interested in backing this upcoming CMON Kickstarter.
This is really cool for people like us because we don't normally see this type of stuff. We basically go to the Kickstarter page and see everything there. So to get this ahead of time and to get this access is really unprecedented. It's a real thrill to actually look at the game at this early stage. So this is a prototype game. There's obviously going to be, it's going to evolve over time, and everything you're seeing has been put together to serve the purpose of allowing people to preview the game. So with that in mind, what we may be seeing is assets which are not completely developed. And I think if people understand that, we're going to be on a good footing.
So right up the bat, just looking at the box, the artwork is amazing. And on the sides, it actually tells us that it's a 1 to 5 player game, which we already knew, right? It's a one versus many game. It's for ages 14 and up, although I think many He-Man fans might be in the older years, but it'll be great to introduce this to a younger audience as well.
I think, Chase, us being the same age, probably, we're pushing the upper limits a little bit there.
And the gameplay, it says, takes about an hour. So it looks like it's a pretty quick, fun one.
Absolutely. I think we've got an hour for this. I think we're going to try and get a few games in over the next couple of days.
What do you think of the box art?
I just think it's what people want to see. It's really exactly what fans want to see. They want to see something which takes them back to their childhood. I remember walking into the store as a kid and seeing the miniatures in the packaging. It really summons that kind of feeling. It's like, oh, okay, and I know I'm a grown man now, but even so, I'm kind of excited to see this stuff. And I think, there's a wealth of art available for this particular property, and I think CMON have picked some really cool assets. It's looking good.
But I think when you're backing a cool mini or not game, chances are you probably want to see the minis. So let's jump in here. And should we just start with the most important character of them all? We've got Man-at-Arms.
No. Nobody wants to see this.
What?
No. Okay.
Come on.
I'll tell you what have you got there? We're looking at the game board.
This is the game board here. So it's let's see, I think it's 11 by 15. And as you can see, it's got hex grids.
I'm a big fan of hexes. I like games. Blackstone Fortress, talked about that a lot before. It really does give that extra dimension to the way that you can play games as well. And it's very cool for sort of when you're playing with multiple different characters, and you've got multiple players as well. So I think this is looking good. It's very exciting. Pretty big as well, bigger than I thought it would be. So there's a lot of space to move around.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out to me the most, and hopefully it's coming across on this camera angle, is that the actual art on the board is really amazing. And you might be able to make it out around the edges here, the way the camera's angled. There actually is a really high amount of texture drawn in on each of the hex grids. So it's not just like a generic sandy board. Like there's lots of little crevices and rocks and piles of dirt that just make it look amazing. And then along the outside, there's this really amazing, like Eternia style. Like you can see the kind of the pointed rocks you would see when they like flash at like Snake Mountain. And it's super vibrant. So I think the board overall, this might be one of the most beautiful boards, just flat with nothing else on it, out of a CMON game I've seen in a while.
So what do we put on it then? Do you have some bits there which we can put over the top?
Okay, well, there actually is some scenery pieces, and these are also really vibrant, and they're double-sided. So you've got like this one has ruins that you can go into, but on the other side, it also has some sort of like foresty plant matter. And these all kind of align, there we go, onto the table. Yeah. And there's quite a bit of these. I mean, I feel like I could almost fill up the whole board just with these as I try and figure out the angles they go.
I was going to say, I don't think that's the puzzle there. Is it, Chase, to try the line?
Guess who was good at tangrams in school? Not me. There we go.
There's quite a lot. So this looks like it's going to be pretty busy. And imagine that you would, given that it's not printed on the board, you change it up according to which mission you're doing or something like that?
Yes. And so the prototype rules that we got have 3 missions that we're going to want to check out. There's like a brawl mode, which is just you get in there and like duke it out. There's a escort, like a queen escort one, which is like a narrative one where you got to protect Queen Marlena. And then there's a hidden relics one where you're out there like hunting around, trying to find these objects before your opponents can stop you.
Right. So who's going to be finding these relics then? Is it time to maybe look?
Well, I think we do. And let me like wipe the board now that I got all this cool stuff out here. There's so much stuff. Let's talk about these cool miniatures. And I think that's what I was the most excited for. Now, obviously, a little bit excited for Man-at-Arms. But
let's start with the most important character, because I know that everyone here is a huge Man fan. So
Man, really? Okay. And let me see. I'll put him up here, but I'll do a split screen so you can see him a little bit closer as well.
There he is.
And he's looking incredibly massive here. If you guys can see, he's really like stocky. He's got like that armor on. He looks like he can take a hit. Now, these are all prototypes. So I was told that these are the sort of like a more fragile resin material, but they will be all in the kind of traditional CMON plastic that you get.
How fragile is fragile? Can you maybe bend the arms a little bit? We can do some tests.
I thought about it, but I felt like maybe this being the first time we've ever had this opportunity, that might be a bad idea, Simon.
Yeah, I think we'll try and get it back to them in all in one piece. So I know that Ram-man's got a bunch of friends. So who's he going to be joined by?
Or does he? No, he does. He also, I mentioned this before, but we got Man-at-Arms. And Man-at-Arms is really interesting in this pose in that he's equipped with a blaster rifle of some sort, right? He's got a gun. And I know for fans of the show, a lot of times people are looking back to the kind of classic mace look. But this is he did in several of the IPs and properties. He did also wield other weapons. He had his wrist blasters. He had his, he actually even had, freeze rays and other rays as well. So as a man who has like a veritable arsenal of weapons, I actually really like this pose, and he's kind of like leaning in, bracing with it. It looks really dynamic and just makes him look BA, like, he is.
With a name like Man-at-Arms, you expect him to be pretty tooled up. So I'm not surprised he's got a number of different weapons.
My only disappointment is it didn't have like a little a duffel bag he's toting around with a bunch of other weapons in it. I might just model that and put it on his base.
Awesome. Does he have a mustache? I can't see.
He does have a mustache, and that's a key thing here. And now, as fans of the property might know, the original toy launched without a mustache. But I think when you think Man-at-Arms, I think he's depicted almost everywhere else with that mustache. You really think mustache. So I'm glad that it makes an appearance.
Right. So who's the star of the show? Who else?
Well, we've got a few others here now. It wouldn't be a He-Man game. Of course, that's Stratos. Now, Stratos is not a character that I was a big fan of, the King of Avion. Right. And he actually was originally going to be a bad guy. But what because his chassis is actually Beastman's chassis. He had the Beastman furry body, but they ended up making him a good guy. But I think here he's going to be one of the more mobile characters. The way he's got his wings and his little jetpack set up, looks like he's ready to rock and then fly around and be like a cool, maybe a supportive piece.
Fantastic. Again, is it again another dynamic pose? Is he on something? I'm struggling to see this.
He's blasting off.
Look at that.
That into the sky on the back of a jetpack. So just ready to strike into action. So really cool dynamic pose where his feet are off the ground and it's just being supported by the blast from his jetpack.
That's really cool. I like miniatures like that.
And then the smallest one on the heroic warrior side is Orko, but he's got his magic wand floating up from the rock.
I'm glad he's got his wand, because in the cartoon, when he didn't have it, he was no good at all. So hopefully he's a bit more focused in the game and can be quite a useful character.
Absolutely. And I did actually peek at one of his skill cards, and it seems like that is the case. Like as he progresses, his magic gets like a little bit more controllable, revolving on that wand idea.
Awesome. So who's the most overpowered that you've seen so far? Is there anything that really stands out?
Well, so what I kind of am curious about is I like Teela. And one thing that seems to be cool about Teela, and like I said, I just literally rifled through the cards as I was pulling things out here. She seems to have kind of two different paths that she can go. So she can both be like a warrior because she's the captain of the guards, right? But she can also then use kind of double down on this idea of having guards go do things. And she can bring in with her these royal guard, which are an additional minion type. So each side, the heroic warriors and the evil warriors, get a bunch of minions and then an elite minion of some sort. And so the heroic warriors, the elite minions are these royal guard.
Are they tokens then or figures?
No, they're figures. They're absolutely figures. Let me just cut the line then here. Let's put these guys in here. So these guys are the elite royal guard. And they've got halberds. They got these cool armored masks. And I feel a little bit bad showing off the advanced version before the regular version. But so she can like command these around and have them fight. So there's like a really dynamic range of play there.
That's awesome. What else we got?
All right. Well, we've been waiting for a while here. And we've got He-Man. All right. So He-Man is the most powerful man in the universe. And he's got that classic pose where he's raising the sword up in the air. This is probably the tallest heroic miniature. I think it's taller, actually. We'll see in a second. Taller than the mounted He-Man.
Ooh.
But I don't know. Should we show that yet? I feel like I've got to take a look at the rest of the guards here. Come on. We got to get some love for the average man. So we've got two different poses for the minions. Now, each faction, their basic minions, have two different poses. Mm-hmm. And one's in this one has like one in an action pose where he's like swinging his mace about to hit stuff. And the other one's kind of like looks like he's about to like breach a room. He's got this like stoic pose, 1 foot forward, ready to swing. And so those are your base guys that you'll be, having on the board as your minions, especially if you're playing as the controller. But
so one thing I didn't remember as a kid is the fact that the Man-at-Arms is actually wearing a uniform, not his own clothes.
Yes.
So they kind of look like Man-at-Arms, basically.
Yeah. He's wearing a uniform. He wants to, a snappy dresser, less decisions to make, right? In the morning, you wake up, what am I going to wear today?
This explains why he grew the mustache.
To differentiate himself from the guards. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Excuse me, Duncan. I'm not Duncan. I'm just a regular guard guy. Oh, sorry.
You want that guy over there with a tash? Yeah.
When he gets in trouble, he could just shave it and just be like, "It was that guy."
Yeah. So
and then we've got the final mounted He-Man.
Oh, look at that
on Battle Cat. That is a massive miniature. What I love about this is everything's moving forward. Like he's charging to battle. He's not like shying away in any manner. He's like ready to lunge in there and swing with his sword. And Battle Cat's ready to tear someone's head off here, a robot's head off. To save it.
Absolutely, yes. So one thing I'm noticing is the base sizes. So the He-Man's base looks like it actually fits in the hex.
Yes.
So it's one sort of miniature per hex. But if you look at Battle Cat, it looks like it's going to take up more than that.
Absolutely. So it looks like he's going to be taking two of the zones there, which I guess, gives him more attack range. Although I guess it could make him more susceptible to attack as well. But
yeah, he's got more sort of hexes that he can be attacked from, I guess.
Surface area. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's still worth it. If you got a giant cat that can maul people, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to get close, you're probably going to get your head bitten off anyway. So this all looks really cool. How big are they? They look pretty big.
They're a little bit bigger than maybe some of the other CMON miniatures. So if you're familiar with games like Rising Sun or Zombicide or even Bloodborne, one of the more recent ones, you can see here, I'll just flash up on screen a size comparison. And so, they about similar, close to size, but they're a little bit bigger than your Zombicide characters, for example.
Okay. And they're unpainted. That's correct when you get them.
That is correct. They are unpainted. All right. So let's jump over and take a look now at an example of the cards. Now, here is one of many cards that are included in this set. This is He-Man. And this is the player card that they'd be using. So it's got his abilities listed here. And if you flip over the cards on the back, they have the controller side. So when you're playing as the controller versus other players, you would use this side. Now, there's also an additional AI card, but we'll talk about that at a later time.
They play a controller against many. And the controller can be either the good guys or the bad guys.
Right. And so anybody can play that. So the whole principle of this game is that it's a one versus many, but it's competitive, right? So you're doing battle and you're trying to win. It's not cooperative in that sense where it's like you're being guided through a story by this DM or something.
Right.
And so if you're playing as the player, you're going out there to do battle. What's different about it is that you're going to have a bunch of skills that you can unlock. And so there's 3 tiers. There's a green, a yellow, and a red. And it looks like they slide right on the dashboard like that you unlock as you go through and play.
Okay.
And each of these cards is double-sided. So, for example, he's got Power Slam and Throw as his abilities at the green level. And so when that would unlock, he gets to choose one of those. And I'm like kind of pumped because I know this is based off the toy line, but if you ever watched any of the old shows, they had some pretty strict like comic codes about like what sort of violence could be shown. And so He-Man threw a lot of people, threw Mer-man into water, mud piles, threw people into, other things off screen. So that was his like, non-violent way of dealing with things. Just chuck someone far away.
Okay. So I want to double click on the Heman card a little bit, because what we're seeing there as well is the notion of health, which is the 8. So basically each character has a number of health. And then also I'm looking at these little lightning symbols, which is power, I believe. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. And now the prototype came with some power cubes. Yep. So it looks like you would just slot these into the bases. Okay. Now, this is my first time, to be honest, ever having a prototype. And so I don't know if this is exactly how it'll be, or if these are kind of just like concepts. I know that in other CMON properties that have like that plastic dashboard, sometimes they have like a tracker thing you slide. Sometimes they're pegs. These just might be cubes that fit on top. I'm not really sure.
Perfect. And power seems to be the currency to pay for the abilities.
Yes. And so these are then the power then gets spent and it goes to the controller. So anytime a player spends power, it shifts over to the controller side.
Wow. So the players gain the power, and when they use it as a currency, it goes to the controller. So there seems to be a decision. Should I actually spend the currency now to enable the controller in their next turn? Or should I maybe wait a little bit longer so I'm not basically feeding currency to the controller?
So yes, exactly. And let me actually show you, Simon, I've got the controller board here. Well, if I can get this over here. Now, this thing's pretty cool. And as you guys, this is a prototype. There are 4 cards that go in there. Those are like your skill cards for being a controller. And then you slotted on the top your characters that you'll be playing with as the controller, and they go in sideways. So I just plugged in, Evil-Lyn, Trapjaw, and Skeletor. And then so as you're playing the game, any power you get to allocate to certain things. So if your Evil-Lyn is generating power, it goes up here under her.
Yep.
And if you get power via other ways, like the tracker board, it seems, then I think you allocate them down here to the actual skills you have.
I see. So you have to make a decision as to where you're going to allocate power at the time that you gain it. So there's not sort of like a big reservoir of power that you can just use for anything. You actually have to think about what you're going to do in future and allocate it to that particular skill or ability. Yeah.
So it seems like power is going to be flowing like back and forth pretty freely.
Yeah.
One of the first things I was trying to figure out is like, is there a way that you can like starve out the controller? And it seems to be like really hard to do that. So you still want to be like mindful of how you're spending your power as a player. But there's a lot of built-in mechanics to make sure that like it's always kind of in the ecosystem. There's always some power surging through.
Okay.
What seems to be kind of cool here, there's like 4 different abilities that the controller can have. And let me just pull these up on screen here. But so there's battle plan, empower, command, and reserves. And what's important to note is I think, this is a prototype. All of these things are subject to change, but it seems like it's kind of like 4 different styles of play. So battle plan lets you draw a strategy card, and it comes with this deck of cards that have different abilities. And so one of them might be Surge of Power. Played during one of your character activations, they gain +3 power. That character may also heal 2.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a pretty powerful card.
The controller will have a hand of those cards. Would that be secret information?
I think it's secret information. And from my understanding is that they just draw from the deck when they play this particular power. So like one style of play is to power that up and use the power to draw cards.
Yeah.
And then they cost power to actually play them. But so like part is like the maniacal, like scheming style of controller. The next one down is empower. And that one has to do with like attack boosts. So it gives like benefits, like after one of your character's attacks, reroll any die. And so that one seems about like making all your warriors on the battlefield like just better, so they can like do more damage.
Right.
Then there's command. One of your characters performs a move action. So that one seems about like kind of the mobility aspect, getting your people into position. And on certain objectives, it seems like that might be really powerful. Like you could surprise your opponents by moving your controller deck and then, taking their actual character activation then to move up an attack or things like that.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's reserves, which lets you spawn minions. So then there's also like a Minion style of play.
Oh, I'm not sure I like that. So with Minions, then, something's going to happen here where you might be able to engage the opponent in such a way that they can't do what they were planning on doing as well. So you need to strategize for each of these different play styles. I noticed with He-Man, it looks like you can actually do different types of builds for a single character. So you start off with He-Man's base sort of characteristics, and then basically as you select the different abilities, you can actually customize that to the type of game you're playing or even the current game state to actually allow you to give you that competitive boost. So there's a lot of things going on with this game. It seems very dynamic as you're playing.
Absolutely. And all of these skills also at some point, like the player, they can be upgraded. So they flip over, and then there's another even more potent side. Now, you get to pick one at a time as you upgrade them, but it lets you kind of like double down on certain styles of play. Mm-hmm. And you can specialize early on, but you're not locked in, right? You have a lot of options.
Yeah, no, it strikes me that it's very, very fluid, this type of game where you do have so many different options. I think for me, it does sort of talk about the replayability built into the game.
Yes.
When you're able to actually play this in a number of different ways. You can play the maniacal evil controller, the controller. So you're summoning minions and maybe you're moving other things around and stuff like that. But also you have the ability to then maybe power up Skeletor and let him sort of wage war and devastate everyone else on the board as well. So I'm really liking this. And just so folks know that what we're talking here is the micro. This is two figures or two characters coming together and duking it out. So what they'll be doing is they'll be in different hexes. You'll move them to contact or maybe even at range and attack one another. So this is very much like having your He-Man figures and sort of bashing them together, having a battle.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I feel like you're gonna have some real like epic combat with this. Like we're just like, smashing people or like pulling in your extra reserves of minions and like swarming people.
Oh, that's going to be cool.
So we take a look at some evil characters.
Let's see what we got.
All right, let's start off with Evil-Lyn here. Now, I'm not sure if I'm like breaking any rules with this. I don't know how strict CMON is, but I already showed this to my wife when it first came in and I pulled them out. I was like, check a look at Evil-Lyn. And she pulled out the stat card and she was like, all right, like this character is amazing. She's got some like dark magic ability. She's got like a mind control thing, but this is a character that I think is definitely going to see a lot of play. And Evil-Lyn's like a pretty cool character, like anyway.
Absolutely. I think in the recent cartoon, she was one of the standouts.
Oh my gosh. So, Lena Headey as her was so good. And maybe tying this in by looking at Trapjaw here as well. So what actually I thought was really cool, it was that my wife is aware of He-Man. We're the same age, but she wasn't quite as into it. But immediately looking at the sculpts, she could tell like what role these characters would probably have in the game. And so like Evil-Lyn is like, yeah, obviously about like magic, etc. She's not in a very defensive posture. She's obviously some sort of offensive caster of some sort. Trapjaw here with his gun, and he's got all these cool like things hanging off of him. All his like, what are those called? He's got all his attachments hanging off the side. You can tell that he's like a ranged character, but it's going to have some other cool little goodies in there. I think they're really doing a great job showcasing not only the characters we love, but also showing, what makes them them.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a lore-friendly way of describing his other limbs. So if anybody actually knows that, feel free to put something in the comments. We're learning as well. So want to make sure we get this stuff right.
Is accoutrements, or are they attachments, adjustable appendages? I don't know. And then we got Tri-Klops.
Yeah.
I was never a big Tri-Klops fan, but then that recent Revelation series of watching it, he's like kind of cool in there.
Oh, Henry Rollins. He was amazing.
Yeah. And of course, the off-maligned Mer-man.
Oh dear.
Jumping out there. Nothing fishy about him.
Please. He's definitely B tier for me. He always has been.
Well, then we gotta get him on the table here. We gotta get some games with him.
Yeah, let's see if he can actually how he fights. And
also Beastman.
And Beastman, that's the miniature.
Yes. And look, you can't quite tell here, and I'll pull him up on the screen here so you can see. But compared to other miniatures, he's actually pretty thick and beastly. He's quite tall, actually.
Yep. I love the way they're so bulky. If you look at all of them together as well, you get a real feel for the characterization. When you see them as cartoon characters, you don't normally notice it as much, but they've done a great, when you actually see the physical models themselves, they look amazing. Beastman for me so far is one of my favorites.
Honestly, there hasn't been a sculpt yet that's really disappointed me. And, as I was saying before, like they're immediately evident, like what they might do on the battlefield or in the game, right? So if you were like sitting down with someone who's never played and you're like, hey, pick a character, they could look at them in the different poses and get a good idea of what they might be capable of. But then again, that might just be part of He-Man as a property in general. Like, what's that guy? He's got a giant claw. It's like, oh, yeah, he's clawful or something. And then, of course, we've got Skeletor. And he's got his Havoc staff out there prominently displayed, ready to blast people.
I'm surprised you haven't done the voice yet.
Meow. Who's got a better one? Do you have one?
No, I don't do that.
What? Oh, you're just Ram Man all the time. I see how
I don't do voices.
Yet. I can adjust the pitch. And so when you say, what do you don't do?
That's why I don't do voices.
We'll save his mounted version for a little bit longer. But so I talked about minions, and Teela had her royal guard. Well, Beastman has his shadow beast. I'm going to put him behind here just so you can see how big he is.
Look at that.
Ginormous. And he's got like a giant like tree club that's been like, chopped off at the edge. So it's kind of flat on the top parts, and just ready to clobber stuff. And this is a huge miniature. If you compare this to any other miniature in the game, it just sort of towers over them.
Let's face it, Beastman was never the cleverest of all the warriors, but
yeah,
his Shadow Beast really doesn't look like he's very clever at all. So it's going to be pretty devastating.
You don't have to be super clever to use a club, right? And so he's got friends who can be clever for him. Clever at smashing. And, then, of course, they also come with hover robots.
The
and
iconic hover
I know. And they're like kind of like cutely menacing. I don't know what it is about them. They're like kind of leaning forward, zipping along. They've got their little hands out like they want to hug you with like some sort of maniacal death grasp. There's like 8 of each of these.
Okay.
And I just have fun and like line them all up. Like I'm not super into being evil per se, but painting up, I want to paint these miniatures. Painting up a bunch of little like hover robots will be really cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this might be the coolest sculpt in the game. That is Skeletor riding Panthor. And it's just, it's not leaping into action. It's just this like sort of menacing, like stalking pose.
Imagine him sort of plodding slowly, but just, towards you, and you think, uh-oh, because he's got the Havoc staff up, you're in trouble already. He doesn't have to run in or do anything dangerous.
Exactly. And I just feel like, it just really, I really appreciate this sculpt because just looking at it, like it just evokes this feeling of menace, of majesty, just really captures the coolness that is Skeletor on top of Panthor.
Are you sure you're not a bad guy? You really get into this, Chase.
Well, I mean, he's looking pretty cool. I'm not opposed to bad guys. I just don't like doing evil. So, Skeletor doesn't always do bad, I guess. He's maybe helped out. There must be a Christmas special or two, if I'm recalling correctly. So maybe I could do something like that.
You look for the good in everybody, don't you?
Exactly. CMON, if you're listening, can we get a special Kickstarter stretch goal, like, Christmas special style, Skeletor does good thing? I don't like doing good. I like doing evil, like that sort of thing. But I'm excited just to move these around and like make laser noises on the battlefield.
All of this is in the base game. Is that correct?
All of this is in the base game.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot going on here. There's just to pick from the characters. So how many characters do you play at a time, or how many? So there's 5 players. So that's a controller and then 4 players.
Yes, there's a controller and then 4 players. We saw the controller board already, but you kind of keep and make sense of a lot of this with this board here. This is the tracker board. And so what happens is, you mentioned health before. So when you've got a character like He-Man has 8 health. He would go on this little 8. Evil-Lyn Sorceress is down here on 6. And so you have your cards, your tracking stuff, but everyone can see everyone's health as the game's going on. And so you track a lot of this other side stuff with this piece.
I see. And also I did notice on Heman's card, he had Indomitable, which allowed him to heal as well. So even though they can be attacked and lose health, they can heal. And I'm sure there may be roles where you could actually maybe heal other characters as well.
Absolutely. I bet there's some support pieces in here. I haven't gone through all the cards that closely yet, but I wouldn't be surprised.
So that's the health tracker. What's above that?
So up here, then, what you see is we have a spot to put down your controller cards. And these are called order cards. And so if you're the evil controller right now, you might have Trapjaw, Evil-Lyn, Tri-Klops, and a strategy card. And what you would do at the start of the round, you would look at these and you determine the order in which you want your characters to activate. And then you would place them on the controller zones, filling up all of them.
Okay. Again, very similar to Blackstone Fortress and some other games like this, where you determine the order of which you activate.
Then the players then get to, now that this is locked down, the players that can then converse with each other and be like, okay, what's our strategy going to be? And depending on the number of players, you're going to have a different number of these cards. So for example, I've got one of He-Man, Teela, Man-at-Arms, and Ram-Man. But if the two of us were playing, we might have just you and me. And so I might take Ram-Man because he's a cool character. I'm guessing you'd probably take Man-at-Arms because I know you're you have some admiration for strong leaders with great facial hair.
I'll go Ram-Man. That's fine.
All right, I'll take Man-at-Arms then. But if it was just the two of us playing, we would just take 2 Ram-Man and 2 Man-at-Arm cards to make up the 4, and we would talk with each other and we'd place them down in the player zone. And
so
then,
let's just check how you put those down. You put Man-at-Arms, Ram-Man, correct?
Wow, you think I would be so not charitable? What?
So this is where it comes into being a little bit competitive between the players as well. Obviously, because you want to gain power, you may actually want to prioritize your character, do some cool move at the start of the round. So it's a little, not political, but you do need to actually understand how you can enable you as an individual, but also benefit the team as well. And I think there may be a few, not arguments, but maybe disputes over the order of these types of things. I can imagine it'll be quite tempting to say, well, actually, if I do this, then I'll power up He-Man. He can take everyone down, and then Ram-Man would be sat there just right at the end of the round, not being able to do anything.
Well, I think this will be when they say it's an hour-long game. I think the mileage will vary based on how chatty you are as a group. Yeah. If you're having 20-minute discussions, this is going to be a long game. But if you guys can come to a democratic agreement pretty quickly and you can place them down, things will go right along.
Chase, is a board game. This is not democratic.
And so then what happens is then at the start of the round, the first person, the controller, flips over and look, it's Evil-Lyn. And she's in the 1 power zone. So the controller would take 1 power cube and put it on their Evil-Lyn character. And that's how much power she's got. And she gets to take her action.
I see. So the pips at the top are the number of power cubes you gain from turning over the card as you take that turn.
Absolutely.
And it goes 1, 2, 3.
Yep. So it goes 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. So
okay.
And so if you wait to go late in the turn, everyone else is going to get to activate first, but you might get a ton of power and you get to act in like a final board state. You're going last with a bunch of power.
Well, that's a really cool way of balancing it out as well, which is mitigate that issue of, He-Man running around doing everything at the start and everyone else just watching him.
But it also means that if your players are trying to starve you out and keep you from getting a lot of power, you can be very crafty as the controller, placing what characters you want to get power towards the end and get still be able to get power no matter what.
Okay. So on the right-hand side, there is a turn tracker.
Yes. So this thing over here, that is I think they're calling it the escalation tracker.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a combination thing. You have these little tokens here where you can track your victory points on it.
Yep.
So the P is for player, C is for controller. But what also happens is that as the games go on, different scenarios have different ways to escalate your level up your skills. So in one scenario, it might say, if you claim an objective, advance the escalation tracker by 1. And so it would move up to the green zone. When it's on that first green zone, everyone unlocks a green skill.
Got it.
And so as the game progresses, you unlock your skills. And that goes both for the players as well as the controller's dashboard, where he's flipping over and empowering his abilities.
Oh, I see. So as the game carries on, then you inherently become more powerful according to how you interact with the objectives and the missions.
Yeah. And like I said, that depends on the scenario. So they gave us 3 prototype scenarios. One of them is a straight up deathmatch brawl. And you get the escalation tracker goes up every time someone gets KO'd. So you're basically duking it out.
That's an interesting point. So you're not killing off characters, obviously, because in these types of licensed properties, the last thing you want to do is kill off He-Man. Okay. So what happens if you do then KO a character? They move down to 0 because they've got no health left.
Yes.
Are they out of the game, or what happens?
No, so they're not out of the games because, no one's really dead, right? And they don't get killed. They just get, concussed, or there's other things Eternia has to worry about.
Right.
And so they're still back in the game, and depending on the scenario, and like I said, this is a prototype game, so this may be subject to change. But it seems like on the scenarios, either they get knocked down and they're kind of out for the round, so they don't activate, and they come back next round, or it seems like it might be also that they go back to potentially their spawn point and then come back in the game.
Got it. Okay. So as the round continues, you can basically take it to turn by turn. There we go.
Yep.
So you take over each card.
Look at that. Ram Man was first.
Wow, that's unusual. Okay.
And then
accidental.
I think I flipped in all the heroic warriors here. So Teela.
Yeah.
And then look at the strategy card.
There we go.
So this is the controller on 3 power. I actually put these down randomly. I wanted to have it in the beginning so I could talk about it first, but here it is. So when you activate the strategy card as the controller, what ends up happening is that the controller takes his power. So it's 3 in this case. Then he allocates it to his board, but then he gets to move all his minions. And minions work somewhat like warriors. They don't take 2 actions. What they do is they get to make a move and then immediately make an attack. It's kind of like a bundled deal. And they don't have to move, but they can't like attack. It's just a singular move and attack. So you can kind of swarm your opponents, and you do each minion like fully, like, so one minion moves, attacks, you resolve it. Next minion moves, attacks. But, and then after they do that, then they can start to use their powers, abilities, and any other cards they have. So it's really interesting to choose, but like, do you want to go early or late?
So with Beastman, he can summon a Shadow Beast, you said?
Yes.
So would the Shadow Beast activate in the minion turn?
Correct.
So you really want to try and get Beastman to be able to do that before then doing that, which gives a kind of a tell to the other players that maybe that might not happen, but then again, you may want to subvert their expectations and catch them by surprise.
Well, you could also go Beastman very last, like, the last controller slot. Then the player has one more play, and then go first, and then he could summon a Shadow Beast, and then the next turn jump on somebody, or I don't know.
This is awesome.
There seems like some tactical options, though.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So then the last thing here, Simon, I want to show off. Besides, let's just go back and look at these amazing sculpts. Yes. Is the dice. And so this dice tray is not necessarily included. This is one of our on the table gaming ones. I'm
sure a lot of people would want that, Chase. So are they able to get those easily?
They are not. So suck it up. No, just kidding. We could be persuaded. So if you're a Patreon supporter, shoot me a note if you're interested. We'll look into it. But you got these cool dice. And the dice have a series of symbols on them. And there's basically 3 symbols. These are D6s. You've got your melee, you've got your range, and you've got your grayskull. When you roll the dice, if you're a melee character, there's only 2 types of attacks. And so if you're a melee character, you want to roll and get these symbols, and they count as 1 melee success.
Yeah.
Can you guess what the range counts as?
No idea. It's
a ranged attack success. And then the grayskull one is really interesting. So what happens is when you roll a grayskull, it counts as 1 success, and it generates you a power.
Awesome. So if we look at He-Man's character card, he has Sword of Power. Then basically that uses 3 hits with the melee dice. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you roll 3 dice, or you have to get 3 of those symbols to actually get the attack? So
his Sword of Power, his basic attack is you roll 3 dice, and you want to get swords to do damage. But look at his attack boost. Okay, it's 2 power underneath.
Oh, and you can add more dice to it. I'm with you now. Okay.
And it seems like I think the rules say that you cap at 6 dice. You don't get bigger than 6 dice ever. For 2 power, he can roll a 6 dice pool attack. And look at that. I got 3 grayskulls. I spent 2 power, but I got 3 power back. And those also count as success. So, what happens though then is that 2 power got spent. I got 3 power back. That's pretty powerful.
But it does go to the controller if you spend it.
Right. So that 2 power that was spent went to the controller. So I could keep gaining more power and spending it and being awesome this turn. It's like, wow, look at all the cool stuff I did. But at some point, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and the universe will balance out here, and that controller might have some things waiting for you as a result.
And also, there's no mechanism really to store power. You have to allocate it to an ability. So once you become capped out, then actually gaining more power is not really that useful. So you continuously want to use your ability so you can recharge them over and over.
So I think that's what kind of makes this really compelling. I'm excited to kind of explore in more depth, is that there's like a balance when when do you spend your power? When do you not spend your power? But at the same time, it's really about using your abilities to their maximum and like knowing like, hey, this is the ability I want to get ready to use. I'm going to make sure I have power allocated there, because, just saving it for no reason or spending it kind of willy-nilly, like there's a kind of a sweet spot you're going to want to find.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of sort of a strategy in terms of how you place your characters on the hexes and then move them into range and then attack, and then time that with the amount of power that you have available, so you can do the most impactful or maybe even escape or do something like that as well. So this looks like it has the bones to be. Not that bones, by the way. And please don't put the graphic up.
Hello, flashlings.
But we've got Skeletor. We don't need any more skeletons. It seems to me that, this structure, the way that this game's been designed, it is very self-balancing. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I can't really wait for us to maybe actually get this on the table themselves. Is there any chance maybe we can get a game in?
Let's give it a shot. Let's take a look. So thank you guys for checking out this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. In the meantime, go get your miniatures on the table.